Welcome, dear friends, to this latest episode of the podcast series, The Way Out is In. I am Jo Confino, a leadership coach and a spiritual mentor.
And I am Brother Phap Huu, a Zen Buddhist monk, student of Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh in the Plum Village tradition.
And today, dear listeners, we're going to explore the integration of the Dharma into business, because a lot of people say, the spiritual path, how wonderful to do this at home, but how on earth do we bring this into the world of livelihood and commerce and business and finance? And this we're going to explore today with a very special guest.
The way out is in.
Hello everyone, I am Jo Confino.
And I am Brother Phap Huu.
And brother, we are sitting with a very honoured guest this morning. So do you want to just introduce her?
Yes, today I have a dear friend joining us on the podcast. Her name is Minh Huong, and we met in Plum Village in 2016, but she met Plum Village before that, and I'll let her tell that story. And she has become a dear mentor of mine, one of the powerhouses in Vietnam, as well as a wonderful Sangha member in our community, and is very, 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 I would say, in love with the Dharma.
So, Hung, you're very welcome. And tell us a little bit about yourself, because one of the things I'm fascinated personally is that you run 35 businesses in Vietnam. You have 7,000 employees, and you are a great exponent and practitioner in the Plum Village tradition. And as I open this conversation, most people don't think those two can connect, that you have your Dharma at home and then you run your business with an iron fist. So before we go into that, just tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey.
It's been a journey, because I was born in a Thai war. So I had experience in my childhood. There's a lot of difficulties, but my own memory is the joy, the love. And then when I grew up, I went graduation in Soviet Union, which is the Kiev, Ukraine right now. And coming back, I was working for Citibank for 10 years, American bank. And then I started up my private investment. So as a CEO of a very big, the largest security firm in Vietnam. So during that time, I had a lot of success, and I became quite famous in a way. I don't know. I don't want to tell that, but I have everything I wanted when I was a student. The power of money, the power of being a famous person. But something in my mind, something is missing. So when I started my own business, and we've been through a lot of challenges. Even sometimes we were facing a risk of bankruptcy. I think that was 2008 when there's a crisis in a region from Thailand. And I managed to go through it. Of course, this is not the time to talk about that. But when I was trying and my definition of success at that time is we have to be the top, and I have to be rich, because money is giving me the power. But the more power, the more money I have, the more lowly I am. I was like in the company, no. Because I'm the founder, and as a chairman, I'm a big boss. I had a lot of power, but I feel powerless because, my people at lunch, when I wake up, nobody's there. I have to eat my lunch by myself. And in the whole, if I came in, the whole group was silence. You can have that feeling. And I was also facing a lot of challenges in my personal life. So I was looking, and at that time the question was, what I'm doing, what is my life? So when I saw really the calligraphy, thầy said, ta đã làm gì đời ta? Actually, I don't see that calligraphy at my time. But actually, I was asking the same question. What did I do? What I want? And then I lost. And happily that I got a book from Buddha teaching. And there's a teaching saying that everything is illusion. So life is an illusion. So you have to let go. Oh my God, so good. I let go everything. I dropped my company and I went to experience a lot of traditions. I was studying Tibetan Buddhist for about 7 years. And I also took a lot of meditations retreat in Thai, Malaysia. And I went for Vipassana as well. And I was very happy when listening to Dharma, learning Dharma. But I could not come back to my company. But that's actually my child. I founded it. So whenever I was away, my colleagues called me, where are you? I said, I'm bowing to the Buddha. And they said, oh, we are bowing to you now. Where are you? So, I feel lost because I love Dharma. I love everything Buddha is teaching, but I could not bring them to life. And I was avoiding my life. I was not myself when I was at my company. I cannot, and I was so confused. And at that time in 2016, when thầy is coming back to Thailand, and I went to meet him just because he's famous. I read his book, but I never think that I will quit Tibetan tradition because, I feel the privilege. I'm so lucky because I got a higher, kind of that perception at that time. So I came to Bangkok and I saw thầy. And I don't know what happened, but I see how Plum Village is setting the lives there. I see this is the life I want. I wish I could be younger, that I can be the monastic person, but actually could not. But really, I think I was looking for so long, and I was searching for many, I was like always running from one place to another place, searching for different teachings. And I was running. Even my friends said, I never stopped because I was looking for something. And when I came to Bangkok, to Plum Village in Thailand, I saw thầy. And the first calligraphy I saw is đã có đường đi rồi, con không còn lo sợ nữa.
Now I have a path, there is nothing to fear.
Nothing to fear. I said, what path? I was asking, yes, I'm looking for the path, but what is the path? But, and then I was contemplating in Plum Village, and then I saw thầy. And I felt very pity for myself, where I had been, why I could not meet him when he can give a live teaching. But so I was avoiding seeing him because I don't know, people were searching for chance to meet up with thầy, and I was escaping. And when I ran in a different way, and thầy was there. So I don't know why I met thầy all the time in the elevators, in everything. And when I met him in the meditation hall, and thầy look at me and he finger point and saying that to the Khương Tăng Hội, our ancestor.
Yeah.
And I still remember his eye. He looked at me and he pointed like that. Mm. And all of a sudden I see, oh my God, thầy devoted his whole life because I was reading his book at home, but in a different perception. And at the place I was reading again, and I saw Thầy is a fighter. He's there, even he's sitting in the wheel, and he's not escaping his life, and I am escaping my life. So I was crying all the time. I don't know what happened to me, but I think I was crying because of happiness. I found it. This is it. This is it. Actually, this is it. And I came back. And during that year, I took many my friends as the leaders, because we all understand our problem as executive leaders. So I took many Vietnamese executive leaders to come back. And at the same time, I was enjoying. At the beginning, I was taking them because I think I have to accompany them to show them the real teaching, because it awake me of my grandparents, because our life, we are very fortunate to be Vietnamese. Before, I never think that being a Vietnamese is a good, I feel sometimes a little bit inferior as being a Vietnamese, because we are poor, and then I look at the economic power of other countries and I feel we are inferior. But when I saw Thầy, I was so proud to be a Vietnamese, because his devotion, his work is actually human need. Because I was looking for the values. And when I was in Plum Village, there's an American professor came to me and said he wished he could understand Vietnamese so that he can understand Thei's teaching and the root of Thầy. And my whole, proud and everything, I said, I want to continue Thei's dream. And that I understand his vision. I understand he's talking about collective wisdom. I understand he's talking about giấc mơ đại đồng. I don't know why I don't see Thầy when he's alive, but I can see his vision. And I came and I have a wish that I'll come back. And luckily, I found myself, I'm so fortunate because I have a platform, a company, which I was avoiding all the time. And I came back, and wholeheartedly, I brought my people to Plum Village. But my practice was very poor. I only have emotions, a wish, a want. And then when I took my people to Plum Village, when they came back, all left. And we went to a crisis. We lost about 70 people. Because, in our country, religion is a different perception about religion. People don't see the real essence of Buddha teaching. And I think I'm not skillful enough, and my practice is not there yet. And there's only right or wrong, and this is good, this is bad. I don't know why I have that. The 5 powers Thầy was talking about, that's trust. And I trust Thầy. I think he can build the Sangha, where I see is very beautiful. When I came to, I see the Sangha where in Vietnam we have many pagodas, but not many monks. We see the pagodas, we see everything is beautiful, but we don't see monks. We don't see the practice, just the pagoda. So I said, how Thầy can do that? Because the monks are not paid. And here I have salary. And how Thầy can build this consensus? When it came to Plum Village, I see things are very organized, but I don't see leaders. And when I was asking, people said, that's about Yitma. Yitma in Buddha teaching is about consensus. And at that time, I could not believe how we can run business in a slow way, and how we can build democratic governance as Thei's vision, consensus, But something is missing when I set up my own company, because it's not just that, because business is human. Business is not just KPI. Business is not just the number 1 or 2 because we were number 1 or 2 always all the time. And when I started rebuild my Vian Direct again, Thầy said there's another possible way. I still remember he saying that. So you know what I did? I stopped talking about Dharma. But I start slowly seeing how Thầy is building. So to be honest, everything I do right now is 100% following Thầy. Everything I do when I met any difficulties, I think what Thầy would do in this situation, you know. And you cannot believe that we are a group of 35 companies and I have about 7,000 people right now. But I dropped KPI because I hate KPI. That's the reason I left Citibank. But I believe in cultivation. So we create an environment same as 3 jewels. I translated into Vietnamese, thầy giỏi, sách hay, bạn tốt, good teacher, good methodology, and good friends. And I was finding a meaning of how I empower people because Thầy has a calligraphy which knocked me a lot. This is, there's nothing more precious than brotherhood. But I transfer that into there's nothing more precious than colleaguehood. The colleague is actually a very right word. And then I shift all my focus on building a colleaguehood. We also start in the morning songs, the songs of Blam Village. In the afternoon, we try to sit and I just make it without any expectation. I see how compassion and how patient Thầy was with his students. So I came back and I said, I did the same thing.
So, Hun, there's so much in what you just shared. And it would be wonderful if every single business leader in the world were to listen to your story. And Brother Phap Huu, just to bring you in here, because there are so many people who, as I start out by saying, the Buddhist teachings, the spiritual path, how wonderful, but they cannot find the ability to connect it to their so-called real lives, especially in business. Business tends to be all about the bottom line, about money. And people, and there's such a mechanistic way of seeing the world that it often excludes humanity. And so I'm just wondering, when you hear Hun talk about, you know, this journey, just this extraordinary integration of Thay's teaching into business and the success that can create, not just in terms of business success, in terms of the traditional money, KPIs, key performance indicators, all that, but in terms of connection, collaboration, happiness, a sense of purpose. Why is it that people find it so difficult to do what Huan is doing?
Well, I think not many people have the opportunity to have a broader view in life, especially in the business world, in terms of like what success means. And because what we're trained, I remember growing up, and when we talk about careers, it's like what has the most money and power, that's what you get attracted to. And so our attraction in the world, particularly as human, and I think as men, mostly men, like we look for a sense of domination. And in the Buddhist context, it speaks about our part of our mind consciousness, which is manas, which is greed, power, success. And a lot of the time the success, it looks in the way of, for me to win, somebody has to lose. And I think what Buddhism and what the Buddha and what Thai offers us is another dimension of really re-asking the question, like, what is happiness? What is success? And I'll never forget this story, because Thai once asked a business leader in the United States, it's like, he asked him, if you're to choose between being successful and happiness, what would you choose? And that business leader said both, thinking that he would be clever. But Thai said, you have to pick one. What is more important? And this business leader didn't answer. And Thai said, because if everything is important, actually nothing is important. And Thai answered for him. Thai said, I would always pick happiness, because if we look back at a humanistic level, we're all humans. Our company is made of humans. Well, now AI is a different story, but coming back to the organism of a company or of people, it is the human. And what Jo Confino was mentioning is her understanding of her own happiness is her colleagues' happiness. She was touching interbeing. She was touching the interconnection of not just the KPI, but of the people that you're working with, you're sitting with, you are collaborating with, you are speaking about. And Buddhism, the monastic community, the monasteries, in a way, also has these questions like, how can we sustain ourselves? How can we continue to grow? We also ask questions like, are we growing in the right way? Are we being successful in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha? But our KPIs are very different. Our KPI is there harmony in the community? Is there enough siblinghood? Is there enough understanding? Are we creating space so that we could be listened to, so that we are being seen? Are we transforming people's lives? And are young people coming to the monastery? Thai always mentioned that. It's like, if we don't have young people coming into communities, that means the body is starting to die. The body is becoming rigid and stuck. Like, there's not new blood cells coming in. And I think for me as an abbot, looking at the community, that's always at my mind. It's like, is the harmony between the multi-generation in our community? Because having only young people, the community won't be strong. We need elders. We need those who have come before to guide, to offer, to be a pillar of stability. But then the elders also have to learn to yield, give space, so that the young people feel that they are integrating, that they are a part of this river. And so there's a lot of mechanism and practices and techniques that Buddhism and the Buddha Sangha and Thai Sangha actually have. We call it spiritual technologies for harmony, for growth, we even have something to like 360, like reviews. But what makes us different, I always feel, is the intentions that we all cultivate together. And it needs to be reminded again and again and again, because the powers of the world, like fame, power, all of that seeps into the monasteries. It sneaks in, and it can cloud our mind, and it can push our way of being, and we can be off track, the spiritual dimension, as well as our beginner's mind.
Thank you, brother. And I was looking forward to this conversation because when I started out in journalism, I was a business and then a finance journalist. And I came in very naive, and it was extraordinary to me that no one ever talked about people. No one ever talked about the repercussions of what they were doing. No one ever talked about community. No one ever talked about social responsibility. It was always about the money and the fame. And it was so dehumanizing. And so I then decided, when I was at The Guardian, to set up a section called Guardian Sustainable Business, which was to look at exactly these issues, Huong, that you're talking about. And I was just this morning reflecting, I just found one of my own articles which said, is it possible to combine the words love and business in the same sentence? I ask this question because of the self-censorship that is prevalent in the corporate world. While business is made up of human beings, its mechanized approach has turned many of us into human doings. For far too long, employees have been expected to leave large parts of themselves at home before they head off for the office or factory. The lexicon of the corporate world has been dominated by the words of war and scarcity, battling for market share, hostile takeovers, invading new territories, and the like. That loud, crude battle cry has largely shut out the quieter voice of community and collaboration, and dare I say it, love. So, Hun, I'm really interested in, so you've taken a very radical approach compared with normal business. And when other business leaders see what you're doing, are they shocked? Do they think you're crazy? How do they respond to how you're approaching business?
Actually, yes, a lot of people were looking at me at the beginning and they think that I will destroy the company. That's why we have people leaving, especially the senior leaders. It's very natural. I don't use the word of love or happiness. It's too luxury in a business world. But it's actually, it's there, because it's about the maturity. So we don't use KPI. I use BMI. That's a business maturity index. Because the world is driven by lacking KPIs, mostly financials, numbers, bottom lines, fames, everything that. But what is actually the root cause of all that? It's just manifestation of the maturity of a person in their career, a maturity of the business. I was looking at my business. Yes, we are number one. But can we be there? I want infinite game. I don't want something that I have to thrive every day and the company is dependent on a small number of people. Because I look at TWOII. TWOII has a trust in us. Buddha has a trust in every of us. We have Buddha inside. And all of a sudden I realized that I have 7,000 Buddhas. I have all the power there. It's not just me, because before my company was relying on me. Without me, I think, things will die. That's why I was escaping to see how they die. And they are not dying. I don't use word of love or happiness because, in business, it's I don't know, in Vietnam, we don't say that. It's too luxury for us. But I use the word of maturity, the trust, the respect. And we cultivate that. We make people feel they are empowered. We trust in people and we respect each other. And I start to respect the junior and I focus on the inferior team because the people who are leaders, they're already mature. They know how to handle themselves and doing the best. But if the junior team, the young people feel they are empowered, and then we can make a stream of power, the river stream. And I start to focus on the young people as they did.
So can you give me an example of how you work with the younger staff to empower them?
I learned TWOII's teaching. We make the company very, not hierarchy. Vietnamese culture is very hierarchy. And in our corporation also, there's hierarchy. There's always, of course, we still have that strict system. We have that systematic design. But the design thinking is, everything is designed to gearing for empowering people. So we create a leadership as a servant manager, a servant leadership that's just focusing on building people. And then we create another line is a value chain driver. So we create a different organization structure, very different. I don't know, but we are very different now. I just learned from TWOII also how TWOII was forming the Sangha, a system for business, and there's a system for people, but they all parallel. And everything we do is focusing, for the 8 years, I was starting up my whole corporation. So I'm very introvert because we have to choose whether to grow, to go out, or we have to build a solid foundation first. So, I was, during that time, I was taking an insurance company. That's about 3,000 people. And when I took the company was at a loss of a big loss because of the COVID and also because of the business operations was not very fragile. It's only revenue driven. So when I took over, I cannot choose KPI because, if you choose KPI as revenue, insurance is the risk taking. So, and I was looking at Thầy, so I exactly choose the KPI of how I can calm the team because that was an angry organization because I'm a new person, took over the management. And I don't, during my transition to set up my corporations, I don't have to fire anyone, because I'm not firing people. I just rebuild the foundations, and the right people are staying, and people are leaving. So we have very high turnover, but it's healthy turnover. And the result after 3 years, when I took the company and redo it and bring mindfulness to the corporations, a lot of people in the industry say that the company, that's a PTI insurance company, people say that the company will went bankrupt for 2 years because I insist it noble path, the right livelihood. But after 3 years, we hit the profit as ever high since 26 years of operations. And people are settled. And when they engaged, when there's trust, there's cooperation. Engage, trust, and there's cooperation. And when there's cooperation, there's a power, and the result will come. We just have to trust in that. And we did like that.
Wow. So, Brother Phap Huu, I mean, this is a shining example of Plum Village sort of flowing into the rest of life. Because, I mean, what Hun just described is exactly how Plum Village has been created, which is Thich Nhat Hanh isn't this dominant leader and there's this sharp hierarchy and the youngsters are ignored, but actually it's all about community. And to create community, as Hun says, you need collaboration, you need trust, you need patience. So how does it feel for you personally to hear this sort of amazingly shining example that actually this is not just a culture that can exist in a monastery, but actually what you're creating here can actually be a model for many parts of life?
Dare I say, I feel so proud. I feel so proud of Pham Minh Huong. And as a woman, a Vietnamese businesswoman also in a very male-dominated society in Vietnam. I actually remember when Pham Minh Huong took over that insurance company, and she was writing to me and saying how painful it is losing so many good people, like good, talented, trained business people are leaving the company because they don't see the path. And I shared that pain with her in that moment, because as leaders, sometimes you see a direction, but not everyone has that same understanding, and not everyone trusts that new direction. And I just remember that moment when I received that text, and I wrote back something very short, and if I remember just acknowledging that pain and just saying we have to trust the path that we are committed to. And in some way the Buddha was like that, TWOII was like that. Whenever we change a direction, the first thing that manifests is fear, because it is so against the norm, it's so against the metrics that have been calculated. But if we know that there's a different way and is setting up a new culture, there is resilience, and there's a lot of courage. So I would say in the story we just heard, there's a lot of courage and there's a lot of pain, and holding that pain with tenderness and trusting your own insights. And sometimes insights are for it to take root, we have to keep watering it. And that means we have to be very committed. And I see that Plum Village is a part of that resilience of a teacher who was exiled from his country, but did not give up his hope. Now, like, we are flourishing and we are solid, but I know the years that it took for TWOII and Sister Jang Kong to consistently just keep building the community. And there were shifts in the community also, because at the beginning, TWOII only had lay students. And then when TWOII shifted his energy and focused on the monastics, because he understood that he's not going to be here forever. And he had to change also his way of operating, because if he passes away and there's no true communication and true trust and true transmission, then Plum Village will die out with the leader when he passes. And so TWOII had a drastic shift in his focus. And I've heard from lay OI members and elder OI members that some of them felt that shift was quite drastic. And some of them also felt jealous and not seen like the good people, because TWOII, there's only so much you can do in your lifetime and so much you can do in 24 hours. And there are moments that you have to start to look at your legacy and look at your continuation beyond this physical body. And I became abbot when I was in my early 22. That's very rare. But TWOII wanted to change the structure of Plum Village. And his changing is his continuation of renewing Buddhism, because traditional temples are very hierarchy-based. The abbot is like the CEO, has the ultimate power, makes all the decisions. But from the very get-go, as I was a novice, we were trained in consensus. And it was a journey, what Jo Confino was explaining. Like, in the early days of Plum Village, consensus was very difficult. There was a lot of arguments. There was, we went through meetings of voting, and the bigger party would win. But what you see that happens, it looks like in a way, it is democratic because the majority wins, but there's a split that's happening there. There's a winner and a loser. And so TWOII revisioned how to bring consensus, how to share our ideas, and how to let go of our ideas. When we're actually listening, we can see what the flow of river, what direction it wants to go into. And TWOII always has this skillful means. Skillful means is so important in leadership, I would say. TWOII would say that sometimes you might have a wonderful idea and you put it into the meeting. And we set up our meeting always in circle so we can all see each other. And once you've done your part, which is to share your insight, you put it into the center of the community, into the field of the community. You planted the seed. And if everyone sees that that seed is ready to be cultivated, they will start watering it. But if others feel like, no, that seed is not right yet, and if that seed, that idea is not taken, TWOII said it's not a failure. It's just that in this moment, there's not enough condition for that idea to take root. But it's not lost. And sometimes I've seen in my community that idea 10 years ago is now being reshared. And now it is time for us to initiate that pathway of organization. And this is also in the fourth Dharma seal, Plum Village, which is ripening. Sometimes we offer an input, and we may think that we have the best input, but it's not accepted. And we may feel very hurt because there's pride and there's self. Even though we're trained that we are one with the river, but nevertheless, we're like, but why wasn't my idea accepted? And there is a practice, especially as young novice, we all say, novice, if you have input, offer them. And if it's not accepted, just let go. But it's being put into the garden. And that insight of learning to see us as one, insight is very different than action. you have that notion, but you go through the action of sometimes I've had many times my ideas wasn't accepted and I was really hurt. But then many years later, I see it starting to take part and I start to see, success and failure is an illusion. It is an illusion because in the ultimate dimension, nothing is lost. And these insights can take journeys and they may mature again. And maybe in that moment, because of just the way I presented it was very emotional, it was very naive in sometimes, and therefore sometimes aging, maturing has a role for the insight to fully flourish into the growth of leadership and collaboration even. And so TWOII really opened this door in the community of looking at how we operate more in a way horizontal. But there is also seniorship because there are elders who've been here that sometimes we need to seek their wisdom because are we making the same mistakes? And the seniors I've seen in Upper Hamlet, one of our most great mountain is Brother Phap Huu, which we all know, and sometimes we call him Brother Turtle. He's slow, but it is steady. And his pace and his mindfulness, he's like a sponge that has soaked up so much experience in the community. And I feel so grateful to have his presence, not as a threat, but as a mountain that I can always come back and check. It's like my older brother, there are some ideas like this. How do you feel? And he has a presence of listening. And he also has the wisdom that the youth is going to take this community forward. And he's very empowering. Sometimes he would say that idea is partially okay. And he'll give some more input. He doesn't deny it right away. And I think language is so important because I have received moments where I give an idea and say, oh, that idea is so dumb or it's so ignorant, and you feel so defeated. But there are language like, it's partially okay, but let me offer some more insights to make it more whole. And this is the journey that we've been through. And one of the insights that I really, really appreciate TWOII keep reminding us is that we're not perfect. And because we're not perfect, we're always going to grow, and that's the beauty. And that has helped me on numerous occasions because I do have high expectation. I do have
Everybody of us.
I do have moments where I'm like, oh, that could have been better. And at the same time, having to yield because only when we can see that it could be better, then we know where to offer. And everyone grows in that moment of recognition of shortcomings.
Thank you, brother. And you remind me of a friend of mine who had started out as a management consultant. And he went with the senior consultant to this business that was under threat of bankruptcy. And they looked at all the issues. They came up with what they were absolutely certain was the right answer of what that company could do to stave off bankruptcy. And they went into the board and presented it. And the board turned it down. And when they left, my friend said to the senior consultant, said, but we had the right answer. And the senior consultant said, if they're not ready for it, then it's not the right answer. And that speaks so much to what you're saying, that actually right and wrong is such a limited binary idea. It might be right at some point, but right now it's wrong. And the other thing about Brother Phap Huu is it's very much like the story of the hare and the tortoise, or the turtle, where the hare they go on a race and the hare runs ahead and is absolutely certain it's going to win, and the turtle is just plodding along, and then the rabbit the hare completely runs out of energy because it's run too fast, too quickly. and the tortoise or turtle just comes plodding along, passes him, and wins the race. And I think that is such a powerful sort of metaphor for life, that if we race too quickly, then we can easily run out of steam and collapse. But Hung, I just wanted to come back to you because you look very radiant this morning and you're very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And so I want to come back to your personal journey because you were talking about you were very lonely, about when you came in to a room, everyone would go quiet, that you didn't have friends. And we know on the path that spiritual friendship is, as the Buddha said, not half the path, but the whole path. And you've gone through this transformation. You had a real awakening. You found time when you met Tai, you just had this illumination of what was possible. And you have spent many years now following this path. And it's brought you success both from a traditional metrics of business, but also it seems to have brought you personal happiness. So I just want to talk to you about, ask you about your personal journey. How are you now that is different from how you were then? And if you'd continued to follow that path of a very narrow view of success, what's the difference in that path for yourself?
Wow, I could not imagine myself without knowing Thầy, to be honest. Sometimes I think if I lost everything, but I still have Thei's teaching, which one I choose? I think I will choose Thei's teaching because, when you have a path, there's nothing to fear. Of course, during the time of my personal practice, there's a lot of challenge. But I think I'm more mature now in the business areas as well as my personal development. And it took time. At the beginning, when I met Thầy, there's emotions. There's a definition of this is right, this is wrong. But and I came to Plum Village actually quite often. Even I'm very busy, to be honest. For the last 8 years, I had to almost like starting up the whole group. So there's about 5 major business areas I have to start up. It's very busy. Thầy Phap Huu knows. But my priority is to come back to Plum Village. Here, there's a space for me to contemplate. So I always feel like I give myself a retreat, a gift. That I have a space and a time in Plum Village to give me more energy, to give me going away. And every time I came back, my cautious, my same teaching, the same calligraphy, and the place is still there, because in Plum Village, you don't see things are changing that fast as we do in life. But it's different. Even this trip, it's so different. And I'm very happy because I'm coming back. I always say to my friends that one's time is not enough. You have, so now, my work is my life, it's livelihood, as I said. I don't feel like I'm working. A lot of people were asking me how you can find your time, because I'm running 35 companies and every day I have to talk to about sometimes 50 people on different things. But one thing at a time. So it's not work, it's what I live. And, and I feel before the company I have is my debt, it's my liabilities. Oh my God, you cannot imagine how I hate it. So when I met people, I never talk about my company. No. And I have a home food, a small project, which is my escape time. But now I feel like every day is new. There's excitement. There's something useful I can do for the people. Of course, I'm still very busy, to be honest. I cannot be that. But I know Thei's I think Thầy is more busy than all of us, because look at his legacy and his work. So I never think that I'm busy now. I enjoy every minute of my life. I enjoy every connections I have. And I'm learning all the way. I don't know. Thầy give me the wisdom. So right now in my company, trust is asset and wisdom to success. And that's all the two words we are saying all the time. Trust. And trust is the KPI, is the dimension of business maturity. And let the result manifest.
And just wondering, is there a particular practice that supports you? Because what you're saying, just to be really clear, is you've got 35 businesses, you've got 7,000 staff, you're dealing with, in different sectors, you're dealing with multiple things. And you're saying one practice is to take one thing at a time rather than see it as one huge mess. You just say, actually, I'll do one thing at a time and do it well. But a lot of people will hear this and say, how do you stop burning out? How do you not get overwhelmed by this? So what is it? Is there a particular practice that allows you to show up every day fresh, as Thai would say, fresh as a flower, while other people would come in looking exhausted and say, oh no, not another day at the office? What is it that allows you to sustain this over time?
Stopping is a power, So breath, and Thầy was teaching us how to stop. And mindfulness is giving you a real presence. And when you presence, ideas comes. I don't have to think. I always say to my people, don't think, just breathe. I was in many meetings, so sometimes my day is because people are coming to me for ideas, for support, because I am like a SOS. I changed my name to Chief Connecting Officer, but now I changed my name to SOS. So my door is open.
Save our souls.
Save us all. Save our souls.
I was in the big hall, open all the time. People just see, and if they see me free, and they come. Being present and learning deep listening, that's it. And I don't know why ideas comes, because we are in investment business. So I just took, last year I was taking back the management of a F&B company. And there's 100 restaurant chains, in this F&B business is, oh my God, that's a lot of problem. And the company was running a loss, a huge loss. And the chairman, when we were discussing, he said he want to cut 30% of the people. I said, no, you cannot do that. Who you can cut? Do you know that? And when you do that, the 30 best people will go, and then you have the rest. So, mindfulness is very powerful. Of course, I have to practice. I don't have time. Before, I was practicing Vipassana. So I took like every morning and every afternoon about 1 or 2 hours sitting meditation. But now I wake up, I already have ideas. So I don't have time for sitting meditation that much. But I believe Thầy said we don't need. So I took every possible way of just watching my breath. Try to observe and be present. The present is very powerful. And when you're present, even I came in a meeting, I don't know anything about that, I have no idea. Like we came to this talk and Thầy Phap Huu, I asked Thầy what's the topic? But I said to him, no, better not ask me because, and then I have to think. I want to be there, and I know what I can tell that's useful for people to trust that there's another way to run a business. Not many people, everybody, I am sure, as leader, as chairman, everybody has a bodhisattva inside. They want to do something for the company. Not like that, but there's Baker McKenzie way, in our country, everything is Baker McKenzie. I say I have another Baker McKenzie, which is free. But mindfulness, Thầy is teaching sitting in every calligraphy, songs, the steps, the way we organize the meeting, like a sitting in a round table, the bell. And our management meeting right now is in the form of retreat. We also have 6 hours sitting together, and then we have a business discussion. We also have the bell. We have the sings with the songs. We also have sharing in a circle. So I form my management executive strategy meetings exactly like a retreat in our ways, but a different content. But the format, the skillful means is taste, skillful means. So I package it. And even we now offer to our clients meeting as well in that way. So we found like we be friends, It's no boss and staff. We are friends. We are colleagues with a different span of accountability. But the intention, like Thầy Phap Huu said, is one goal. And that makes us as a stream of river. We always sing that song. I love that. Đi như một dòng sông. I love that.
Go as a river.
Go as a river.
So I love this idea that why pay millions of dollars to hire McKinsey if you can actually find a much older spiritual technology that is more effective? Because often, I mean, it's a reflection, isn't it? Often companies, individuals, we're looking outside of ourselves for answers. We're looking for someone to tell us what to do. And Thai, as a teacher, was always very specific. He said he never told people what to do, but he offered people to create the environment in which they could become their own teacher, that they could learn it for themselves. So, Brother Phap Huu, you are not the CEO of Plum Village, but you're the abbot. You have a sort of certain seniority here. You have a lot of responsibilities. There are many things you have to do. There's things you have to do with accounting, things you have to do on legal. You've got a big reconstruction fund. You've got the monastic, the monks to sort of support. You've got non-stop sort of retreats. I mean, we've had 900 people coming tomorrow for the next 2 weeks. It's also a big, complex job. And what I've noticed in the last week, you're normally out there in front and you're sort of often doing the first talk and you're very, very present. And this week has been a retreat with a few hundred people here, but I've noticed that you are in a different space this week. You are relaxing, you're in the background, you haven't shown up to everything. And so I just want to ask you, in a sense, what Huong was saying, that sense of you need to slow down sometimes, you need to stop sometimes, you need to refresh yourself in order to sustain your joy, your happiness, and be present. So tell us a bit about how you do all this.
And on top of all that, taking a lot of criticism. I think giving myself space to also reflect on the judgment, the criticism, and the perceptions that I have heard, that I have received, and to also ask, is it true? Because sometimes some of it is true, right? Yes, I love to be at the front line, I would say, like where there's a lot of action and to be involved and to be connected. But I think this time around, coming to this June retreat, and it's a really big retreat. We're celebrating 60 years of the Order of Interbeing, as well as this year would mark 100 years of Thai. So there is this amazing energy of collective students from around the world coming here, and that's why Pham Minh Huong and a whole delegation from Vietnam is here to come to the root temple in a way. And causes and condition, my body couldn't show up. It wanted to get sick. And we always talk about deep listening. So I listened to my body and I just said, you want to get sick, let's get sick. And just surrender in a way. And then trust. What I've been listening to, what sometimes I call her Boss Minh Huong. It's like, what does Boss Minh Huong want me to do? And she speaks a lot about trust. And that was also Thai's word. And Jo, you also have told me so many times, you have to trust the community. And I think like that is my kryptonite sometimes. Like the reason why I'm always pushing myself at the front line is because I'm questioning the trust. I'm like, are they gonna do it? Are we gonna meet the demand? And then try to curate things more. And I think that there is there are levels when it is time I have to show up, because it's leadership, and sometimes showing up is to support, to say that I can see it. And this time around, especially this year, has been really tough. So just having space for emotions and having space for like my feelings to come out, with Dad's passing, and then with I think also I bundled in some fears that I've had. Maybe it's connected to Thai, it's connected to Plum Village, it's connected to my own questionings in life, as well as then you hear criticisms about you, and you want to question it all, and all of that, it needs space to transform. And there's a song that Thai translated. It's a very sad song in Vietnamese. It's a song about a breakup, but Thai changed the words to it to make it a dharmic song. And there's a line that says that sometimes when you've overcome your difficulty, don't go back into action, and go back, go back and relearn again. So this retreat, I volunteered to be part of the tofu team, because when I was a young bhikshu, I did a lot of tofu making and a young novice. So I wanted to return back to a familiar activity where I don't need to think. You're gonna make tofu, and there's a formula, and you just follow the formula. You don't need to think much. And I felt like that's what I needed, just to go into spaces where I don't want to have to use my mind so much. And a lot of my brothers and sisters found out that I wasn't facilitating, and their first question is like, is something wrong? And I said, actually, I don't want to listen anymore for a short period, because I've listened a lot, and I want to have space. I want to create space so I can listen more later, and pacing myself. And I know after this, we will go to London together to offer a podcast for 500 people. And then we will go back to Plum Village, and we have 3 weeks of summer retreat, and then 1 week of wake up retreat, which I know I will be really full on. So it's been a wonderful, the sickness has given me a lot of space to think and to feel and to observe. And I think particularly in the last week, though, just because this podcast gives a space of just a lot of truth, and I've been hearing things about me, and it's painful, and it's also sometimes it could cripple me, and I am leaning on friendship a lot. I've been seeking a lot of help, and to be listened, and to be given advice, and to listen truly, and to then have space to feel the emotions through the day, and because that will ripple into the community. So to honor the present moment, like to honor presence. And I don't want to show up when I know that I would then have to bypass all of that rawness that I'm holding right now. So I feel lucky and privileged in a way. It is a privilege to have a community. So, and I just said, dear community, you guys hold on to the wheel, the steering wheel, and I'm just gonna sit back and make tofu.
You know, I want to add that it's very critical about the word of presence. Sometimes we think that presence, you have to be physically be there. But presence means that crystal clear, everything just focus. You know, even my colleagues, they think that I have that superpower because I understand their problem. I know they would got that problem. How I was not with them, right? Because as a boss, you cannot be with everybody. But I don't know why I always speak a right time, putting the right question at the right minutes. But later on, I understand the present is like you are there, you care. And sometimes we also need a presence for ourselves, for myself. So presence here is a manifestation of a mindfulness. It's not a physical presence that we think we have to be. It's a connection when you're 100% wholeheartedly, mindfully with them. And I'm sure they are supported.
And thank you for that. And I remember before I came to Thai, I was working with a sort of self-development group. And a lot of people were critical of of one of the women leaders, saying you should spend more time with your children. You shouldn't be traveling. And she said, it's more important, my presence, in terms of the fact that they know I love them and the quality of the time I have with them, than if I'm present all the time physically. Because when we're present all the time physically, often everything becomes assumed, mm-hmm. and nothing gets valued. And actually, sometimes it's in the absence that people recognize the love. And if you're always there, sometimes there's not the opportunity for that. And brother, thank you for sharing that. And this is part of the path, is to suffer. And also, you said you're relying on friends, and how lucky to have friends, because if when you go through periods of great loneliness, it can make it much worse. And just to add my tuppence halfpenny here, you have such a beautiful heart, and such a beautiful aspiration, and such a depth of understanding, and that you are that you're not it's not so much of a role model, but that your presence allows other people to walk their path. And so sometimes when we receive criticism, and when I've received it, it's deeply painful. And also, in the absence of the love you feel at that moment, also opens up to the level of love there is as well. So in the absence of it, also to appreciate the depth of love there is for you. And that, Juan, what would you like to say to Phap Huu at the moment? He's had a difficult week. You've known him. What would you say to him as mama?
I 100% understand, because we all have the same problem when you are at the top. You had a lot of expectations. You have a lot. It's not because they don't like us or we have any problem, because just that's human mind. And I'm facing the same. There's a lot of expectations. So when there's expectations, there's always, a criticism, but we go through it. You have to trust. That's the path give you more mature. And then that space, when you look back, you will treasure it. You will treasure it because I feel the same all the time. Even we think our intention there, what we do there, but it just takes time for people to see it. Maybe it takes a few years, as you said, but it takes time. So us just be there, trust in ourselves, and you are luckier than others because, in Vietnam we have a saying, đạo đức. Đạo is the path, đức is accountability. So because you have a very, like Jules said, a good heart and a mindset level that you have that đức. You have that accountability. And the challenge you can experience is different than others. And we have to thank to the challenge we can experience that makes us more mature and more fruitful as the path. Because our path is the wisdom. And the more challenge you can experience, the more difficulties you can experience, the more opportunity you realize.
And what does it feel like to have Phap Huu in your life? What difference does it make that Phap Huu is in your life?
I don't know why. I feel like even we don't talk, right? Because he's busy, I'm busy. We never talk. But I know he's there. The connections in spiritual life is very different in life. Life, you have to be there, you have to connect so people will forget you. But I don't talk to Phap Huu very much. I don't know, but I think he's there. I can understand every problem, everything he has. Because I still remember we met at a very difficult time of Phap Huu. Me too. At that time, I also had a lot of difficult times. So people are leaving. The company is in transition. Nobody trusts what I'm doing. So confusion. But because I look at him and I'm sure that's why he called me boss. But I think thầy chose Phap Huu to be the abbot, right? For Lang Mai, the root temple. He has to see something in him. And we all trust him because, like you said, it's right. Enabler. It's what I think when I met thầy always enabler people. Because I feel him, I met him, I feel I have a lot of power. He said, let's do broadcast. And I said, I can do it. Otherwise, if somebody else is asking me, I said, no, I cannot. I feel like. So Phap Huu is like that. He's there for us to excel. And sometimes he need time for him.
And needs to know who his friends are and how much he's loved.
Everybody is loving him. I was asking, I have many friends in Blam village. And one day I said, everybody loves him, need him, but they don't know how they can help him. I'm sure thầy will also, because we in Vietnam, there's so many criticism about thầy. Me too. I was reading thei's book with criticism. So I don't get anything. Only when I came to Blam village and I met, of course I'm not have a direct conversation with thầy, but I can see thầy through thầy Phap Huu, through many stories. Even I love to have a retreat that only about thei's story through his teacher. I see thầy in the monks and the sisters and brothers here. They are manifestation of thầy in a different aspects. But thầy Phap Huu, I'm sure he's the one.
Phap Huu, just one last thing on this. You talked about having high expectations, and of course, and then Khun said, yes, everyone does. We all do, or something like that. So high expectations. There's a beauty in that because we want to excel, and there's a risk in that, which then we feel we can fall short. And we were talking about sort of not being perfect. So what are you learning? And of course, this is very fresh for you, and so it may not be the moment, but what are you learning about yourself and your inner power through a difficult process where you feel criticized, you feel ill, your energy is low. And yet there's this huge, this is a big moment, the OI 60th anniversary, TWOII's 100th birthday. So there's a part of you, I imagine, that wants to show up in your fullness. So how are you working with that? Because, and the reason I'm asking is because this is such a common experience, isn't it? That we want to do this and then we feel that, and then someone says this, and then it's such a common thing to go through.
I can honor the rawness that I'm going through, and I'm still going to show up when I need to show up. And that is the trust that I have within the community and within this path. Of course, in the community, I can always ask for someone else to, let's say, sit at the bell for yesterday's transmission. But I think that there are things that I know, like, I need to show up for that. And it's not a question, do I or do I not? It's, no, you just go. And I think there's a beauty there in sometimes you learn to, it's not about your feelings, it's about like surrendering into what is needed. And I feel for 25 years being in the community, I know when I need to show up. And what I have been learning in this moment is that don't forget that you are young, that you are a human, and that you make mistakes, and that you can do something with the highest intention, and something can be so wholesome, and your aspiration is in a particular way, which youth feel is like aspiration of bodhicitta, of mind of love, but somebody could misread it and have a perception and have a story about it. And not to be caught in that story, because I know in my heart it's not true. And you can't control all perceptions, but it's very tempting to go and control all perception. That's the truth. And there's a truth that I've leaked a lot of energy in thinking of the past. I was like, could I have done it differently? Or maybe I should have done this and that so that people can see my other side, and then you go down this rabbit hole of like, what you could have, should have, da. And we all know that pathway. And it really is a power to remind yourself to be in the present moment, to let go of that, because I know it's not true. And to remind yourself of also your goodness. What I saw is so easy to go negative. I was like whipping myself in a way, because I felt like, for people to have these perceptions, that means that that I've done something wrong. But then there's a side that I know I've done absolutely nothing wrong. So it's really funny, like how the mind and how, our whole practice of mindfulness is coming back to the present moment, coming back to the now, the truth of the now. But the mind wants to leak its energy, and I've been taming it. And I think taming the mind and taming the storytelling in myself has also been very exhausting. And I'm starting to see and feel the fruit of what Pham Minh Huong just mentioned. It's like you're gonna have a moment later, and you're gonna be, that was such an important moment in your life to suffer and to listen and to trust your practice. And there's no other refuge for me right now besides the practice. And for me, what I've been doing more is not being so still, because when I'm like just doing sitting meditation, for example, the radio station of my mind activates into many different dimensions. But I've been just making tofu, cutting grass, sweeping the decks, like, so where I can like put my energy of focus into something very concrete. I've been washing more bowls, cleaning the bathroom more. And it's been something where I can change the peg in a way, or change the soundtrack in the mind. And it's been very, it's been bringing me back so much to my youth, my novicehood, and I think that is what has been also very nourishing for me. And I think that like you both just mentioned, like our presence doesn't mean you have to show up. The presence is like I'm taking care, and I love the community so much, and I love even people who have perceptions about me. You know, I talked to a very dear friend, and that dear friend a few weeks ago went to Deer Park and did sitting meditation at the monastery, and came out of the retreat and said, "Brother, thank you for reminding me to go to the monastery. I have learned to forgive." And then I went through what I'm going through, and I said, that word forgiveness is really far away right now in my mind consciousness, but I'm gonna walk there. And I trust, and it's arriving actually, Jo. And I'm feeling really at home with everything that is happening. And internally, I'm joyful that I have the spiritual dimension to have a faith. That's a power, right? To have a faith in the practice, because there's nowhere else for me to turn to besides the breath, besides the writing of the emotions. And I've learned to write through my brothers and sisters that taught me how to journal. You know, I've learned to put the emotions into the body. So been actively walking, exercising. And it's very funny, but in the most difficult time, the one safest place is go back to your fundamentals.
Brother, thank you for the sharing. And just to share that this, what you're just describing, is leadership in action. You know, not only for the fact that you're prepared to share it, because there's such a power, which we've discussed before, such a power in vulnerability, not being vulnerable for the sake of it, but through vulnerability, we allow other people to be vulnerable. We allow other people to not try and be perfect. Allow other people to say, actually, you know, here is the abbot of Plum Village who's going through a difficult time and is finding it hard to resolve it. It's going to take time. That is the practice. That is what the whole teaching is about. It's about that when the suffering comes out, there's causes to the suffering, and there's a path through the suffering and to greater happiness. And so, you know, you're right bang in the sort of in the Four Noble Truths. And in your sharing, that is true leadership, because most people, when they're going through a difficult time, they hide away, they block, they pretend. And the fact that you show up, you're not pretending, you're owning up to what you're going through, is, I think, the highest form of leadership. Huong, would you agree?
It's 100% absolutely true. Authenticity is the leadership, and in everyone allowing. So I truly believe what you said. I 100% agree. As a leader, we have to be very authentic, and we are all human, and the humanity of us gives space for people to grow also. Like yesterday when we have a morning section, and there's a question about Thầy. How is Thầy as a human? You know, they cannot believe that Thầy can go to the toilet. Thầy can, you know, because to them Thầy is different. You know,
even Queen Elizabeth evidently went to the toilet. So I've heard. And Huong, I just want to get back to your journey, because you're very lucky, because you run your company. You're the boss, as Phap Huu says. But my real question is, for people who are listening, and they might be saying, oh, she's so lucky. She can bring the practice into her work. She's able to fully integrate it. But there are a lot of people who work in companies where they don't have these opportunities, where they are under enormous pressure, where they are constantly told what to do and how to do it, and whether they're doing it right or wrong. That they go to work sometimes very miserable, that they don't see an opportunity to show up, that they have to just have their wholehearted concentration and energy on just making money, doing the job. There's no opportunities to show up. And I'm just wondering, what would you say to them about how they can start to bring the practice into their lives, even if they are under all these pressures?
Well, I always say, welcome to life. Life is like that. Life is full of suffering, unexpected things, As we are living now, there's a lot of challenges on the climate change, AI introductions, on the good things, but also on the other things. So I think at my position, it's not that easy because we are listed companies. I have expectation from the shareholders on the share price where everybody is working on shareholder values. So I have to balance, like also we have to balance as a woman between family and life, So this, if you keep asking that kind of questions, it's endless. It's endless. There's no answer for that. The only answer you have is the power of now, the present. There's always choice. If you are crystal clear, if you have the mindfulness energy as a light, there's always choice. And because we were during the time last year, we had a very difficult moment when VN Direct is a security company. Its continuity is our life. If we are disconnected from the exchange, the company can went bankrupt. So we are facing a bankruptcy moment. We were attacked by the cyber attack, and we had to stop for 1 week. So at that time, a lot of inputs, like clients, we about 1 million clients connecting through us for the exchange. And then we have the government pressure, we have the security committee pressure, employee, they have to face the clients. All this happen in one moment. And I have to solve the problem of connecting the company. When in that chaotic, what you can do, you better focus. The practice really helps us to go through that. Not me, but my whole team. I have to, and the communication. People after the crisis, they came to me and said, "Who is helping you on the communication?" I said, "Nobody is helping me. That's mindfulness help me. I communicate very authentically. I do all my best. I accept if anything wrong, I already did all the best. So I don't have to regret on what I have done." So just trust that. And we, every step we choose, there's 1% chance. And we put back the company after 7 days. I have strong belief in this practice.
So, Hun, I just want to go a bit deeper on that because I think it's very important. So, again, to make it relevant for our listeners, people go through a crisis. Something comes completely out of the blue. It could be an illness, it could be a bankruptcy, it could be a friend in danger, it could be anything. And you said, and you then brought the practice to bear on that. So give me a bit more detail about what you actually did. What was the practice in that moment? So you've got the cyber attack, the business is frozen, you've got all the million clients, you've got the government, you've got everyone on your saying what's going on, the risk that the whole company will collapse. So, and you've got the rest of the businesses to run. So this is, I'm for our listeners, I'm sort of holding my hands out, so I'm holding a huge rock above my head, and if I let go of it, I'm going to be crushed by it. So all that is going on. What was the practice of mindfulness specifically for you that got you through that? You said, well, I communicated authentically, but give us a bit more flavor.
I stopped asking why it happened or regretting. No, just present moment steps, to be honest. Walking meditation. We can't sit, There's no way you can sit, right? So you do stepping, like Long, also my CEO of VN Direct. He said that steps help him to go through the challenge and the anxieties, because we and angry as well, because it takes a lot of efforts for us to reconnect. But then when we come to a license to go back again, it's another challenge. And normally in Vietnam, the authority is very slow, and we have to count every minute, you know. So all this. So when you only look at outside and say and see the difficulties, it makes you more illusion, you know, more drift away. The only thing, so the way out is in. That's the only way you come back to the breath, to the steps, and then you have. I don't know why I'm crystal clear. At that time, I practiced so tensely. The only way I can do is practice so that I don't get more inputs. I try to avoid all the inputs. I give myself space so that I can see clearly what needs to be done. And at that moment, it's only breath, step, and the present moment. So that's the practice. And very simple practice, just the steps. Because we don't have time to sit, we don't have time to do other things. Just walking meditation is so powerful. It's so powerful. It helped me to stop. It helped me to be very still and crystal clear. Even we also hired a communication supporter, a communication company, and I met him with John, with the film during the trip.
Max.
Yeah. And we met and we were chatting. He said he was advising many company on crisis management. And the crisis is very small. But he never met a company that have calm, stability like we do. And I don't know, it's just the practice because we don't have choice, right? To be worried. If worry can help, it's good.
If worry could help, it would be good, but that's a good line.
So brother, let's look at that from your perspective, because what I hear Hoon saying is that what she did was she created space. Even though it looked as though there was no space, what she did was created space, and she created space by being in the present moment and through the maturity of her practice, and by not getting stuck in it being one way or the other, but just saying, actually, this moment I'll do my steps or whatever. So last night I had quite a bad night's sleep because rather stupidly, and I try and do this less and less, I looked at the news quite late and saw that there was renewed fighting between Israel and Iran. And so I went to bed very troubled by that and woke up at 20 to 5. And I thought, I'm going to lie in bed, I'm going to breathe in, I'm breathing in, breathing out, I'm breathing out. But it didn't help me. So I got out of bed and I made myself a cup of tea and I sat there quietly, and that did help. And when my wife, Paz, got up, I said I was breathing in and out consciously, but it didn't help me. She said, that's because your practice isn't very good. I said, thanks, my love. Good morning to you too. So there are two questions. One is which comes back to the ripening, about the fact that actually, and we write about this in our book, Calm in the Storm, that you have to, it's really helpful in good times to be practicing so that when the crisis comes that you already have the practice. Is not good enough to say, a crisis, I'll stop practicing now because then our practice is not deep enough. And the second part of it, which I'd like you to respond to, is about this question of space, because the present moment to most people is this tiny point between the past and the future. But when we're in the present moment, it's extremely spacious. And I'd love for you almost ignore my poor practice, but maybe to focus on that second part, which is in the present moment, which looks so tiny, is the vastness that allows us to be present. And what I hear Hung saying is that in the present moment, the answers came to her because there was the space for those. The answers were almost already there, but she needed to create the spaciousness in order for them to show up for her. Whereas if she'd been panicking and worried and closing down the space and fearing the future and worrying about the fact that maybe a mistake was done in the past, that the present moment would have disappeared and the company may well have gone bankrupt. So I'd love to get into that moment of spaciousness that doesn't look as though it's spacious.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. And I'm just going to help dissect what Jo Confino mentioned to all of us and her story. And actually, I'm now going to come to when I saw her in Paris. What Jo Confino was practicing is a Dharma from the Buddha is not shooting the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth arrows, because our mind is really good at making the situation worse with the fear, the worries, the perceptions, and then the noises from around us. And it could be our closest friends with the best intention that wants to help, but that's all just noise. And the first noble truth is just acknowledging that this is suffering. Like our company just got cyber attacked and we might get bankrupt. So to not right away to then let the ship just sink, which everybody is panicking and it is about to flip. In the present moment, when we're still, which is giving space, is to then identify, first of all, yourself, like calm yourself. Because if you're going to panic, you're not going to be able to even see what to do. And so that present moment, that's why it is the beginning, the middle, and the end of the practice. Like the present moment, when we actually come to it, it is to feel, first of all, yourself, and then understand the situation, which is now we're going into the mind and the reality. And then in the reality, to see it as it is, not what it shall be. Most of us, a lot of us, if we don't have a Dharma, we're going to go to then the doom moment. And we are not even taking care of the pain, the trouble, the situation. And that is why the Dharma that we do every day, sitting, walking, eating mindfully, we call it a practice because, like Jo Confino said, you can come to Plum Village and you're in a happy, you're well now. So everything is la la land. But in the crisis is when you know how to activate because you have trust. I know how to walk. I know how to listen. I know how to feel my body. And the only thing you can do is to meet it. That's what I heard from Jo Confino. And I look back at our own journeys. And we, in our podcast, we said so many times, there's no other way than just to meet it. And in that moment of meeting it, you suddenly feel a lot more spacious because you're not being overwhelmed by the noise of what if, what should have, what is the future, because there's no future right now. It is the now. And I think that the story that Jo Confino just shared with everyone very generously is to say that that's the power of mindfulness in the present moment. And that's where the only place, the destination, because the more you worry, it's not going to help the situation. It's not going to give you an answer. So there is another way that is an ancient wisdom that has been transmitted to us for 2,600 years. And still today, people think it's just lala. It's like, yeah, mindfulness, that's not going to solve the problem. Actually, my friend, it is going to solve the problem because your fears and your intellect is not going to help right now. The intellect can only become clear when you identify, you give space for that intellect. And all the wisdom that you have received, the data that you have from everything that you study, can only be true in action when you're calm and present and know how to activate it and not to layer it on the crisis. Calm in the storm, right? Is that we have to be calm in the storm in order to activate the wisdom that we have. And the wisdom to activate it, we have concrete practices like breathing, because your breath is an indicator of how your body is, of your fear. How is it short? Is it long? Can you strengthen it? Can you give it more length, more depth? And I just want to come back to then when I met Ji Minh Huong in Paris, because I was also not sure if she would come because it was national news in Vietnam. And we're coming to a conference for Vietnamese abroad and how to empower Vietnamese in the West and create collaboration. And they invited Plum Village as a spiritual dimension and connecting and saying why mindfulness as a practice is not a tool, it is a practice. And they positioned us, it would be me speaking and then Ji Minh Huong speaking. But because of timing, she had to fly. So she's like, actually, she's going to speak first and I'm going to speak second. And it was really beautiful because everybody knew of the crisis, but nobody was sure if they can even bring it up. So in her 15-minute of her keynote, she just unapologetically, authentically said, I'm suffering right now. You all know what is happening to my company. And there's nothing for me to hide. And the only thing I can do is practice mindfulness right now. And that is what has gotten me to this podium to share to all of you why it is so important to have a spiritual dimension. And I was just sitting there like, that is the best Plum Village advertisement ever in this whole conference. But I felt that authenticity and that non-fear that Ji Minh Huong had in that moment to share about that we could go bankrupt in the next hour, but I'm here and I'm trusting my team. I'm trusting the practice that I've been cultivating for years. And I want to show up here fully too. And I don't want to fake. I remember her saying that I don't want to fake to say that business is going well, because it is not. And I just felt the whole room in that moment was so still and so present and really met suffering with tenderness in that moment. And in the whole Dharma, Thai has always said, don't be afraid of suffering. The more you're afraid of it, the more it will have power over you. But I felt the way that Ji Minh Huong shared about it, she was embracing suffering in a very mindful way. And that's the difference than suffering embracing you, but it's you embracing suffering. And that for me was very powerful as a listener and as a friend, as a spiritual friend in that moment, because I was also breathing very deeply in that moment because I needed to give her the strength she needed to then go back to Vietnam with the whole team and continuously show up and have trust. Because how could you have trust in that moment when everything can crumble and everybody may lose their job? So that moment of just being spacious in the present moment is all we could do. And I remember at the end before, she's like, let's go have a cake before I go though. And we did. We went to have a piece of cake. And we said, because we're in France, the pastry here is incredible. We cannot let go of this present moment. And we walked by a patisserie and we're like, that looks incredible. And we all just made a quick turn and shared a cup of tea and shared a piece of cake. And that for me was really beautiful, even in the midst of Ji Minh Huong's deep pain.
And, brother, just to reflect that back to you, that's what you're doing now.
Thank you.
Sharing the pain, taking time out, sitting with it, reflecting on it, recognizing the past is coming in, the future's coming in, recognizing that, and then saying, actually, creating the space physically, because here you have to create physical space, and in your mind to find your path through this. So I see a very clear connection between what Huong described and what you describe. And just to add one thing to that, when I was at The Guardian, it was London Climate Week, and I'd been asked to go and give one of the keynote speeches at the conference. There were several hundred people there. And that morning I had been criticized, accused of something for writing an article that was not fair. Which very much like you, brother, I felt I got what they were saying, but it was not true. My intention was very clear. The way I wrote it was very clear. But with one interpretation, you could see it from their perspective. But I was pretty crushed because it's the first time I'd ever been accused of writing an article that was not in some way appropriate. And I was feeling really, really terrible. And the conference was actually in the same building as the Guardian offices. And so it was time, and I had to go down because I couldn't not turn up. And they reserved the front seats for the speakers. And so I sat there, and I was like number 4, and I was sitting there, and I was crushed. I was feeling completely worthless. I was fearful of my job. I was fearful of what would come up, and just thinking, how can I stand up and say anything? And then, each person was getting closer to me, and I thought, I'm stuck now. I can't run away. And it was my time, and I just got up to the stage. I said, I'm really suffering right now. Something's happened this morning. I'm feeling deep amount of pain. I'm feeling very powerless. I'm having to come up. I don't really know what to say to you. Don't know how to respond to this personal crisis right now. And then I realized as I was speaking that I was speaking for all of us, because it was a climate conference. And everyone there was feeling powerless. Everyone there was feeling that, we're in a crisis, we don't know what to do about it. Everyone was feeling that under pressure and feeling that they didn't know how to deal with it. And so then I was able to connect it to that. And afterwards, so many people came up to me and thanked me for my vulnerability and thanked for that honesty. So it's in these moments that we do make the greatest impact, even though all we want to do is
Hide
disappear
away.
down a hole and put the cover
Go
on and
invisible.
say, leave me alone, leave me alone. Huong, I have a final question for you, which is, you've created all this. That you've manifested so much into the world. And how would you like to continue? Because Tai always said, be careful of being number 1, because then there's the fear of you'll end up being number 2. So there's a pressure to maintain number 1. You have all these companies, all these people relying on you, all this creation in the world. Is that a pressure for you? Would you be happy maybe tomorrow if you just felt, actually, you know what? I'm going to go off and sit in a cave for 3 years. I'm going to walk away. Or do you feel like, oh God, I have to stay because I have all these responsibilities. I have all these people to care for. So I'm just looking for, in a sense, I know it's looking into the future a bit, but we're allowed to do that sometimes. How you've been walking this path. You came from a path of deep suffering, of not having a path. You've now been walking your path. You've been seeing the benefits both to you personally and also within Vietnam and within all these people you're empowering and providing a livelihood for. How do you see your path going forwards?
Yes, many people were asking me that question.
Oh, so boring. I'm so boring. Maybe I should ask you a better question.
To be honest, before I was asking myself also, how can my company can be continued when I'm not there? Of course, that question, but, to be honest, I'm sure Thầy also have the same thing. So that's why I have a strong belief in community, and that's why I build the company, not because for me, but for my employees who we have like families there as well. And I did all the best, and I don't have to regret. And if it's impermanence, I don't know whether we are here tomorrow, right? So I live with that, so that I don't have to be worried much. And everything I could do, every minute I could do is, we already have direction, and I devote myself for the practice and really for Thay's vision to treasure the wisdom of our ancestors. And with that mission, I feel my life is so meaningful. Even the failure is also, I think, is meaningful. Of course, like you say, you could not sleep last night. Me too. I cannot sleep last night, not because of the podcast. I don't know why, but I enjoy it because that's life. We're all human. Our body sometimes. So I accept it. I learned to accept things. I learned to accept that the company could not be there for some reason, but we already lived wholeheartedly, wholesomely, every day, and let it be. Tomorrow will come and it will answer. So I live my life right now, not strategically, because I remember we have a director when I hired him he used to be the chief marketing officer of a very big conglomerate region, like European region. He came to my company and he said, "You don't have the strategy." Oh my God. To be honest, you ask me what is a strategy? I cannot give a 5 years strategy plan, Of course, we have direction, we have mission, we have vision, we have foundations, we have value system. But what is the business plan for 5 years? I was thinking about that before, but now I know I know today is more important than tomorrow. And we have a greatness path, which means that we have to be better every day. So that's how I do. I'm very fortunate because I have the platform that give me the true practice, because there's challenge every day. There's people leaving, there's complaints, there's expectation from clients, that's life. And that's really a practice when you have to exercise the practice. That's really thực nghiệm với thực chứng á thầy.
It's direct experience.
Direct experience. And I'm living that way so that I don't have to worry if I'm not here, what will happen to the company. Somebody will be there, I'm sure. There will be another me. And there's many people, even I'm living now, my phone is off. And I'm sure I can live for 1 year without any problem because I know my team is there. I'm just being there because I think if I can support, I will give my support so that they will not face the difficulties. Not because the company cannot survive without me, just because I want to be there to support them. And living with it is so meaningful and so joyful.
Thank you, Huong. And it reminds me of when I was a young journalist. At the age of 28, I took over as the finance news editor for a UK newspaper called the Daily Telegraph. It was a big job, and I knew nothing about finance, so that was a doubly difficult job. And so I was working very long hours because I was in charge of choosing the stories, and then I would wake up every morning and rush downstairs. I was in a first floor flat and pick up all the newspapers at my doorstep. And did I make the right choice? Did I make the wrong choices? And there was one evening where I was working very late and my eyes were quite red. And one of the senior journalists came up to me and he said, "Jo, I have one piece of advice for you, so please listen." And I said, "What is it?" And he said, "The cemeteries of England are full of people who thought they were indispensable. Now just go home." And that changed my life, because then for the next 30 years, I negotiated a 4-day week, because actually I had this feeling without me, of course it would all collapse. And TWOII actually gives in the book, The Art of Power, he talks about a businessman who thought he was indispensable. And his name is Frederick. And TWOII gives a very long story about this guy who just gave all his time and energy to work, gave nothing to his family, wasn't there for his sons or daughters' surgery, wasn't there for his wife's surgery, wasn't there at key moments. And then he thought he was indispensable. And then he suddenly died at the age of 50. And TWOII says, and he was replaced within 3 days. None of us are indispensable. And Brother Phap Huu, last word for you, which is, there are a lot of people who look at Plum Village and the Plum Village practices, and we just mentioned this a bit earlier, but I want to come back to it, as very nice, lovely, very nice to have mindfulness, very nice to do walking meditation, very nice to focus on your breathing. But actually, when the rubber hits the road, it's not very helpful. You can't run your life according to these practices and understandings. And right here in front of us, we have, and this is the first time I've heard your story, Huong, and I'm sort of thinking, wow, that's pretty spectacular. Someone who has not only focused on the practices herself, but has deeply, deeply, deeply integrated it into, as a very senior business leader and as a woman, into her life and into the lives of thousands of people in a way that I can't imagine. Until you mentioned it, Huong, I was unable to imagine that was possible. So I'm just wondering what it's like for you to have this living, shining example of what is possible, that when people say, I can't see how I can integrate this into my work life, that you can just point to Huong and say, check her out.
I think examples are really important in the world, like just saying like, actually it is possible, somebody did it. And it comes to this moment where I heard Tai give an answer about, is Buddhism a religion? And he said, well, for him, Buddhism is a way of life. It's more, the question is like, how do we ask when we study the teachings and we study meditation, we study spirituality, the question we always have to ask is, and how do I bring that into my life? Where does it belong in my life? Where are the critical moments that I need to cultivate it so that when the crisis comes, I know exactly what to do? And we just had an opportunity to listen to a woman in Vietnam who has put every practice and used all her strength in one of the most critical crisis moment. It was World Vietnamese News that whole week, I remember. And it survived. And Ji Min Huong is here and she is thriving, not as just a businesswoman, but if anything, as a spiritual friend to so many in this community. And I think one of the qualities that I really appreciate, that because Ji Min Huong doesn't separate business, spirituality, and friendship, is like we can just have a cup of tea and nobody would know that she is a businesswoman. And I think that is the beauty of interbeing. And I think when we don't trust it, it's because we still have a dualistic mind. Well, spirituality is here. My personal life is here, and then my business life is here. And that way of understanding limits us from the intersection of the fruit of life. Like, not talk about spirituality, like we said, this is just life. When we see that the practice is life, then you will see how it fits in. And then you will then have the courage and the trust that if we set a direction, and the ones who don't want to follow it, they will organically just leave. And then you will be with the ones that will see it and understand it and is open to it. And that's a new opportunity. And I had that moment in the community where a lot of my closest colleagues and brothers and sisters, they disrobed. And I felt very alone. And I felt like my crew is gone now. Why am I still here? I don't want to be abbot anymore. I want to go and chill. But when you also just give space and you relearn and you open yourself up and you trust the path because you're still here, there means there's a trust there. The new friends, the new people, the new manifestation that will show up, and you will be like, that's why I'm still here. And so I think like there is Tai also, you have to be stubborn in the path. He said in his path, he has stubbornness. When everybody say no, but you know it's true, you said yes. And I think all of us, we have to cultivate that inner trust in ourselves, especially when we see something so beautiful and the world wants to say no because it's not mainstream, but you see it, you trust it, you've tasted it even. You have to be resilient and you have to keep on doing it. And you will know the others would join you. And that's where Plum Village began, from the peace movement, because Thai didn't want to join the war. He didn't want to take up arms. And of course, that wasn't a popular movement. The popular movement was to pick a side and fight. And he was like, I would take a side of peace, to show that I know that there are those who will also walk this path. And I think this is why Plum Village is still here, is to say that for those who want to bring mindfulness into our everyday life, come and practice. And I like what Pham Minh Huong said. Plum Village is still the same. I come back. It's a very slow change. I'm not here to learn something new. I'm here to be again, to see again. But it will be new because you're a very different person. And your understanding of yourself is different. Your understanding of your present moment, your suffering, your happiness is very different. And I really like that definition, because a lot of times we go to retreats, it's like to learn something. But I always say you come to retreat to be alive again, and then to slow down again, to feel again, to listen again. And giving that space, that present moment, is where we will be able to be true and authentic to ourselves. Then that will ripple into the path that we choose in life. That authenticity will give us the ethical path that we choose in the world.
Beautiful. So we could talk all day, but our listeners won't listen all day. So
Sorry, listeners.
So thank you so much, Hun, for joining us in this very, very inspiring life you're living and sharing, and that we can learn and put into practice ourselves. So thank you so much. Dear listeners, if you enjoyed this podcast, there are many more. You can find us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on other platforms that carry podcasts, and also on our very own Plum Village app.
And this podcast is brought to you by the Thinking Han Foundation, the Plum Village app, and Global Optimism, all of our partners. And if you would like to continue to support the podcast, please visit tnhf.org/donate for the podcast, for us to continue offering these podcasts throughout the years. And we would like to offer our gratitude to the whole team that is behind every podcast. Today, Georgine on sound engineer, as well as our other Jo, who does the editing, our podfather Clay, our producer Kata, and Anka, who takes care of all the show notes, and then Cindy and Jasmine, who takes care of our social media and the publication, and for it to go far and wide. And to all of you who listen and continue to show up for every episode, thank you so much for being part of this community, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you very much.
The way out is in.